Shalom Yerushalayim Zeu Shari Rashechem.
Shalom, everyone, and nearly Shabbat Shalom. Today is Friday, March the 1st. Today is the 21st day of the first Hebrew month of Adar. And our portion to, this Shabbat is a portion called Ki Tisa, starting on chapter 30, verse 11. And it's quite of a long chapter. It's quite of a long portion. And it includes many topics that are very relevant to one another. They're kind of like connected. The portion begins with further instructions about how about what do we need to prepare for the tabernacle. So we spoke already about the kind of the donations that they took and the kind of fabrics and metals and artifacts that need to be built, and we talked about the priestly garments and all sorts of things that existed in the tabernacle and how to build them. And in this portion we continue to talk various things, and one of those things is the frankincense. There was a little altar inside of the holy sanctuary made out of gold, well, covered with gold, and that altar was only for the frankincense. It was different kinds of spices, 13 actually, 13 spices with different amounts from between one another, and that was given on the altar daily, and that gave forth a very, we would say, a spiritual kind of smell. It wasn't so, it was of course physical. I mean, you could smell it, but it was something that had the intention of affecting you spiritually. The Jewish Talmud is saying that the city of Jericho, which in Hebrew is called Yericho, was named Yericho by the Spirit because the word reach in Hebrew is smell, and you could actually smell the frankincense that was given on the golden altar inside of the holy sanctuary in Jerusalem. You could smell it all the way to Yericho, which in Hebrew means they will smell. The tabernacle is a place where all of our senses are active. We have the sense of eyesight, looking at all the beauty and splendor that they created. We have the sound of hearing, with hearing the bell, the pomegranate and the bell coming from the robe of the high priest, making a sound as he was going. There is the singing of the Levites that's also connected to our sense of hearing. There is the sense of the sense of tangibility, touching all those materials. There is the sense of taste, tasting from the sacrifice which was given on the altar, and of course there is also the sense of smell from that sacrifice, special sacrifice of the frankincense. When we talk about our senses, we basically see a scale of spirituality, going from the least spiritual sense, that's the sense of tangibility, moving forward all the way to the most spiritual sense that we have, and that's the sense of smell. Why is the smell considered to be the most spiritual one? Well, simply because it says in the book of Genesis that God gave breath to the man in the nose. It's called the breath of the nose. And so soul is given through the nose, and this is also the one body part with which we breathe, okay? And the word for breath in Hebrew is connected to the word soul. Neshima is breath and neshama is soul. So the sense of smell is considered to be the most spiritual one. And there is a Talmudic passage talking about Mashiach in days to come. When Mashiach comes, the Talmud is saying that Mashiach will smell us. He will smell our worthiness. He would know by our smell who is worthy and who's not worthy to live to the latter days and to see God reestablishing His kingdom. So the sense of smell is very important. Later in the portion, we read about the sin of the golden calf. The sin of the golden calf is probably one of the most dramatic events, one of the worst sins ever, because this was the sin of the golden calf, as we all know what happened there. It was taking place while the fire was still consuming at the top of the mountain. They were sitting at the foot of the mountain. They were all there waiting for Moses to come down. They were still seeing the fire of the Lord consuming the top of the mountain, and they chose, not all of them, 3,000 of them, they still chose to fashion, to create the molded calf, the molded image, and worship it. In Song of Songs, there is one verse that says that while the king is at his feast, my spikenard gave forth its fragrance. The spikenard was one of the spices which was included in the 13 spices included in the sacrifice of incense. It's one of them. And the spikenard actually was one spice that didn't smell so nice. Its smell wasn't that great when you smelled it, uniquely, individually. But when you put it in the mixture of all the other 12, its smell all of a sudden changed and actually reinforced the smell of the other spices. So it was very much needed. Very much like as we talk about, how every person is needed in the overall embroidery of people that are the people of Israel, as we call it. So everybody has each person has its room, no matter, regardless of what's he like, spiritually. But we all have our room under the wings of the presence. But interestingly enough, in Song of Songs makes a connection between the sin of the golden calf. While the king is at its feast, the fire was still consuming at the top of the mountain. My spikenard gave forth its fragrance. I already fell into sin, and both of these things are included in our portion. We have the sin of the golden calf, the feast, and we also have the whole description about that special sacrifice, which is the sacrifice of frankincense. And I think this is a really nice, this is a beautiful connection, and really something to look into and read this portion very carefully. Just let's try to imagine the tabernacle with all that it has to offer, to influence us, to impact us in every way. And of course, reading about the sin of the golden calf, not reading about it as an event that happened in history, but something which might still happen, and we might still face as individuals and as society and as a nation, as a country, as any kind of format that you'd like. We are still facing those kinds of spiritual dilemmas and spiritual challenges, and may we all live up to face those challenges and to overcome those challenges, and may we all get our inspiration to overcome these challenges by smelling the spiritual smell of the presence. Shabbat Shalom.